Right, let us now begin to move on. The clerk will now proceed to read the orders of the day.
Shared Parental Leave and Pay Bereavement Bill, second reading.
No.
Now.
Chris Elmore.
I want to mention the member for Broxtowe, who this debate in his 10-minute rule bill has led the charge on this issue in respect of his constituent Darren. I will leave him, Mr Speaker, speak of those circumstances, but I want to pay tribute to him for the tenacious way in which he has lobbied on this issue over the last year.
The question is that the bill now be read a second time. Fiona Bruce.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. May I pay tribute to the cross-party efforts led by my honourable friend for Broxtowe and the honourable member for Ogmore to correct an injustice for parents dealing with the challenges of losing their partner and gaining a child who do not then qualify for child leave or pay, and could even then risk losing their livelihood as well.
Darren.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I'd like to start today by giving my heartfelt thanks to the Member of Parliament for Ogmore for securing this second reading today. I've been campaigning to make this change in law since this issue was first brought to my attention by a constituent in February 2022. And so I was delighted when I found out that the Honourable Member opposite would be taking on this bill. As has been evident during previous debates, including my 10-minute rule bill on this topic, in which we had support from members from every major political party, this is a bill that parties can get behind. It is truly a cross-party bill, and we have seen support for this issue from right across the House. It is not divisive or controversial. It simply seeks to allow individuals who have lost their partners in childbirth the right to have time to spend with their newborn child. And that is without the need to have been previously employed, a 26-week requirement. I told Aaron's story in this House on various occasions, but will continue to do so until this change in law is enacted. In February 2022, Aaron, who was in the public gallery today, came to my constituency surgery in Stapleford in Broxtowe. In his arms was his 3-week-old son, Tim. Tim's mother, Bernadette, had tragically passed away during childbirth. Aaron, however, had not been employed by his company for the 26 weeks required by law to access shared parental leave and pay. I have since this meeting felt it is my purpose in this House, as well as representing my constituencies, to right this wrong. In our modern society, people simply should not have to be forced to choose between their families and their jobs. Providing the security that allows a parent to take time off with their newborn child, knowing they will return to their job, is essential. This is no less important for the sole surviving parent than it would be for the birthing partner. Mr Speaker, as a father myself, I cannot imagine being in the situation Aaron was in. We must do more to ensure that parents who do find themselves in that incredibly difficult position to have as much support as possible in place. Aaron was lucky, as his company were kind enough to allow him the time he needed, but others may not be in that position. Instead of sitting back quietly, however, Aaron was determined to make a change so that others did not find themselves in a position where they were unable to take leave. Mr Speaker, he has campaigned alongside me for this change in law for 2 years, and I'd like to thank him for the bravery and determination he continues to show. This bill is fairly unique in that it gives something we cannot often grant as members of Parliament, and that is time. Specifically, the time to spend with a newborn child following tragic circumstances. It is the time that, if missed, cannot be gained back. Research has shown that babies undergo huge growth, brain development and neuron pruning in the first 2 years of their lives. The brain development of infants, including their social, emotional, cognitive development, often depends on a loving bond or attachment relationship with a primary caregiver, usually a parent. Researchers have also found that there is increasing evidence from fields such as that of neurobiology and development psychology studies that a lack of consistency in parental presence such as if the remaining parent was not able to take leave from work, can lead to long-term mental health problems, as well as to reduce overall potential and happiness. The evidence is clear, Mr. Speaker, that being able to take leave for individuals who have lost a partner in childbirth is a necessity for themselves and their child. I believe we have a duty to ensure that right is written in law and not left up to the goodwill of individual companies. The businesses that employ individuals in these circumstances being negatively impacted is a topic that I have heard raised as a concern in this area. I believe some may have trepidation that such a change in law would cripple small businesses who cannot afford this type of leave. To this point, I would say firstly, it is an incredibly small quantity of people and businesses that would be affected. Again, this is not an issue that affects thousands. Furthermore, if such leave is not allowed, then that businesses could be faced with losing the valued employee, a situation I'm sure many would seek to avoid. I hope the effect a change would have on businesses would be small in comparison to the benefit that would be gained by the individual receiving leave. I'm incredibly grateful that thanks to the Honourable Member for Ogmore, we have got the parliamentary time today to have this vital debate. I would also like to thank the Parliamentary Under Secretary of State at the Department for Business and Trade, the Honourable Member for Thirsk and Moulton, who has been incredibly helpful in bringing the bill to this stage. But I must briefly put on record my disappointment that this bill will not include pay. This bill goes some way in ensuring that support is in place for a small amount of people who find themselves in this situation, but it could go further. So it is my hope that in future we do get to a stage where leave and pay are granted to those who find themselves in situations such as Aaron's, and it is regrettable that pay has not been included today. Leave, whether that be maternity leave, paternity leave or shared parental leave, was created for the purpose to allow a new parent to spend essential time with their newborn child. It seems in cases such as this that the people for whom these types of leave were created to help are often the ones missing out. When faced with this life-altering set of circumstances, Aaron was affronted with having to cope with the challenges of being a new parent, the prospect of a new job insecurity, and also whilst in the midst of extraordinary grief. That is more than many of us can handle. Mr. Speaker, this bill is not controversial. It is simply seeking to allow individuals the right, under circumstances beyond their control, to take leave to be with their child. As I have mentioned previously, it is also not a bill that will affect the vast amount of our population. It affects a small number of our society who need the help of this government and their employers. If an individual falls through this gap, they could find themselves faced with the choice of losing their job or losing spending time with their newborn child. That is not a choice anybody should have to make. To summarise, we have a gap in our law. It does not affect a huge amount of people in the UK, but those that it does affect feel the impact. By ensuring that individuals who lose their partners in childbirth have the assurance that they will have leave no matter how long they have been employed by their company, to take that time away would be with their child is crucial. The alternative may be companies losing valued employees and new fathers becoming unemployed during one of the hardest moments of their lives. Well, I have the opportunity to change that today. I'll wind up my remarks today by thanking all of those who've got us to this point today. The Honourable Member for Ogmore, the officials, the Parliamentary Under Secretary of State at the Department for Business and Trade, the Honourable Member for Thirsk and Moulton, my parliamentary team, Lily Grant and Joshua Stefan, to all those who've contributed today, and lastly, and most importantly, Aaron. Thank you.
I want to start by commending my honourable friend, the member for Ogmore Opposite, for introducing this important bill, as well as my honourable friend before me, the member for Broxtowe, who I understand has also attempted to introduce a similar bill previously.
And this is not a debate, I'd like to call it a discussion based upon humanity. And I think it's very proud. I think it says a lot about the member for Elmore that he's taken on a bill that my honourable friend from Broxtowe has worked upon and to bring about positive change. And
It's important in particular because of the case that the honourable member for Broxtowe has raised many times in this place already, and the manner in which he did again today brings credit to him. It is, as I understand it, at least the third moment in Parliament in which he has raised this case. A 10-minute rule bill, a Prime Minister's question, and an adjournment debate last December. And so I congratulate him for taking from his own constituency advice surgery the case of Aaron Horsey, bringing it to this House and pursuing it in the way in which he has done. As well. I come back briefly to the honourable member for Broxtowe, who, as I say, has been quietly impressive on this issue in the House. I think of the surgeries that I hold and would be holding were I not here today on a Friday, and it is right that those of us in this House do that and bring, where it's appropriate, the individual cases of people who come to see us with particular problems to the floor of the House. I think it's one of the unique things about our democracy, and why, despite all its challenges, our system of democracy continues to be arguably the best in the world. So I commend him for his support for Mr. Horsey, and I hope Mr. Horsey will take some comfort from the cross-party support for the work of his Member of Parliament.
And again, it is always a pleasure. In my experience, normally you do these things not on your own, you do them jointly, and his work with the honourable friend, the member for Broxtowe, has been really important in terms of bringing this bill forward. So again, can I thank my honourable friend, the member for Broxtowe, again, who has long campaigned on this issue. We met in my early days as a minister, I think, with his constituents, and I thank him for bringing it to the House's attention and to my attention. We were always keen to do something when we could, and delighted to say now we've got the right time and space to be able to do this. It was a pleasure to meet him with his constituents, and I was in the gallery today. It was a pleasure to meet his constituent, Mr. Horsey, in our department last year, the year before last. So I'm sure the whole House will join me in expressing our condolences to Mr. Horsey and for the loss of his wife Bernadette, and send best wishes to him and their son Tim. I'd again like to thank my honourable friend from Broxtowe for whose unwavering support and advocacy for parents who find themselves in this tragic position has been pivotal in bringing forward this issue to the forefront of our minds and bringing this legislation forward. And again, a pleasure to work with the honourable member for Ogmore. I look forward to working with him to support the passage of this bill.
It is for the member for Broxtowe's credit that he was able to convince an opposition whip to take forward a bill from a government member. But actually, this isn't about party politics. Death and bereavement, as the Honourable Lady of Congleton said, affects every single one of us. And one of the misconceptions about politicians is in fact, Madam Deputy Speaker, we are all human. And we all breathe and live the same lives and are impacted by many of the issues that he has championed over the last 2 years.